Chilling to the bone. News that our intelligence services have been used for political gain, captured by our politicians to spy on their enemies. A report by the high-level review on the State Security Panel paints a terrifying picture of how our intelligence services have been used to serve political interests. While the rest of us are reeling at the revelations, the State Security Minister said that she isn't shocked. Former President Zuma is calling it a can of worms that people might regret. To what extent is the country's intelligence system compromised? How deeply has the rot set in, and can we ever eradicate it? To make sense of the findings of the report and its political implications, I have now with me former Intelligence Minister Ronnie Kasrils. On Skype, we have Tamin Khosi from the Right to Know campaign. Good evening to both of you. Ronnie Kasrils, were you surprised?
Like the Minister, not surprised.
No.
And Jane, I don't think people who have been close to intelligence and security over all these years are surprised. Even amongst journalists and civil society, Right to Know, etc., they've all been raising these questions. And it goes back to the man who says it's a can of worms, who I would say is very responsible for the rot. Jacob Zuma, in a sense, it does go back before him. But the rot really starts at that point of the way he ousts Thabo Mbeki as president, the manner in which that was done, the political support that he organised.
And done all of this through the intelligence services.
And one of the instruments, because we know now with the Watsons and the Guptas et al. That it's not just this area, but in terms of intelligence security, this is the area which thrives on secrecy. And from that point of view, they can do so much more harm. I just would like to very quickly get in a congratulatory note to the panel for this outstanding report that they've produced, to the President who commissioned this and then has decided to put it out to the public with some redactions. We can understand that. So your question is, how do we get to this stage? How bad is it? Can it be rectified? Well, the Commission focuses on a number of points as to why it got so rotten. And I would say that key there is the politicisation of the security and intelligence agencies and services, the enormous secrecy which they have and abused in terms of resources, and how that then allows corruption, and the whole threat then to society as a whole, because instead of focusing on where the real threats to the country are, the focus has been on areas within the body politic, within the ruling party, the question of succession, etc., other political parties, and then the media, and so on. And that's hollowed everything out. In terms of state capture, what goes hand in glove with this is what happened to the National Prosecuting Authority, the oversight mechanisms. Here I'm really referring to a dud parliamentary oversight committee. And
it just really shows you how riddled it has been. Before we continue, I just want to say what Cyril Ramaphosa said. You know, he believes that the high-level panel is the first step towards rebuilding credible state security institutions. Let's listen.
The report is out. I mean, that is the high-level panel's report, and it is now being discussed. And actually, it has been discussed thoroughly by the people in the state agency itself. And it's good to be transparent and to let these things come out so that we can repair whatever damage has been done in the past. So I'm very relaxed that we're now on a really good and strong path, and this is how we continue to build the state. Statecraft is about making sure that you repair whatever damage has been done, and you move forward, never looking backwards too much. So I think we are building a very good foundation, and I'm assured that we are now going to have a properly realigned state security agency, as well as many other agencies in our state.
Let me come to you, Tami Nkosi, from the Right to Know campaign. I mean, when you hear Cyril Ramaphosa say that, do you believe that we are on the right path now? We can repair the damage, from your experience?
I think there's one of two things. On the one hand, it actually gives some confidence, and I think probably public confidence to hear the president making those kind of pronouncements. But on the other hand, we get a little bit wary, given that it's election times now. So how much is this, used as a political capital to actually trump up something? So for us, in essence, what we would like to see happening, if Cyril is committed to actually changing anything, it would be naming and shaming the people that are implicated here and actually going out there and pressing charges and prosecuting the people that are involved in that. So I think that's the only thing that would take comfort in when we see some movement or some action actually coming from the office of the president.
And tell us what your concerns were over the years. We know that the media, along with politicians and civil groups, were targeted.
I think, one of the things that we had actually done, a lot of people don't know that as far back as 2005, when the Jacob Zuma, at the time, then eroded the whole state security agency and the oversight bodies. I think it's important to mention the fact that the Office of the Inspector General, at some point, particularly during Jacob Zuma's presidency, was actually non-existent, and it was a deliberate strategy. But having said that, I think as far as 2005, we had lodged a complaint with the Inspector General of Intelligence Office to say, actually, we suspect that we are actually being spied on. A couple of our conversations when we did our monthly cons across the three provinces that we exist in, our cuts would get called, our calls would get cut, and there would be interference, and then we'd hear voices and all sorts of things. And sometimes even our emails actually being hacked, and our email correspondence being hacked as well. So we did lodge a complaint with the Inspector General of Intelligence even way back then. So already by that time, we had our suspicions that actually we are being spied on. And this just came in as a vindication to actually say, in confirmation, and the report confirms that our suspicions were actually true.
It must be a relief to have got that confirmation, as you say. Now, the former president, Jacob Zuma, has hit back at the report on Twitter, saying he wasn't consulted. He said, "I've never been asked any questions by this committee. This committee has two well-known apartheid spies. I've never sold out nor written letters to the security branch. I feel nothing when apartheid spies call me corrupt. I hope people are not opening a can of worms which they might regret." That sounds like a threat to me, Sir Caswells.
In anybody's language, I think it's disgraceful. And there he is, playing the game, apartheid-era spies. What is this red rag about? From start to finish with this gentleman, there's been conspiracy upon conspiracy as the reason why he has problems, why he was removed from office, etc. And I would say he's the biggest spinner of conspiracy this country has ever seen. I'd like to see him come forward. He wanted his day in court. And whether it's day in court, whether it's in this seat, being interviewed by the likes of you, Jane, I'd love to see this happening. He is the absolute root of the problem. And it does go back, as we heard reference to 2005, to that particular ploy of his where he ganged up against President Mbeki, managed, unfortunately, to get the alliance with him because they had their own particular gripes with Mbeki.
And how did you push back when you were minister?
Well, within 6 months, I realized that there was big trouble brewing, and where we had those fake or emails emerging, which any child could actually see was a load of rubbish, that alerted myself and other good people from the Inspector General, the President, of course, but within the intelligence community where they've got some good people still. And that's where I raised the red flag and called in the Inspector General, because I just couldn't believe what I was being told by heads of service at that time's tissue of lies as to why they had decided to put surveillance on a member of the ANC's NEC, etc. And by the way, on Cyril Ramaphosa as well at that particular time. Absolute fabrication, politicization, aiming to assist Zuma to get into office. And unfortunately,
I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there.
Okay.
I mean, it's such a big topic. We could talk about it all night. Ronnie Castles, thanks so much for sharing your experience with me. And Tami Nkosi, you too.